The difficult phase of the war continues, but Ukrainians don't stop fighting for their freedom and independence from the Russian occupiers. In this video, I will show you new massive attempts by the Russian occupiers to attack Ukrainian positions with armored vehicles, and the powerful resistance of the Ukrainian army. I'm Hustler. Let's get started. The action takes place in the Kursk region, on the outskirts of the village of Viktorivka. A Ukrainian reconnaissance drone spots several large Russian armored convoys heading to the rear of the Ukrainian military. Ukrainian operators launched their combat kamikaze drones and set out to intercept the enemy convoy. Currently, the most successful tactic for the Russians is to break through Ukrainian positions in small groups and land Russian infantry in the Ukrainian rear. That's why the Russians are pushing for the breach, regardless of the Ukrainian drone attack or artillery fire. They have only one task: to jump as deep into the Ukrainian rear as possible and take up positions there, regardless of the losses they suffer during this breakthrough. Here we see an emergency landing of Russian infantrymen in a forest landing, as the armored personnel carrier they were moving in was damaged. The Russians tried to hide in the forest, but Ukrainian drones started dropping bombs. A lot of Russian soldiers' equipment was damaged, but they are not stopping their offensive. Ukrainian drone operators skillfully do their job, destroying Russian armored vehicles and preventing them from breaking through to the Ukrainian rear. For now, it is important for Ukrainians to keep the Kursk region under their control. In the case of future negotiations, it could be exchanged for Ukrainian territories currently under Russian occupation. Having lost a large number of vehicles and infantry, the Russians began to turn their armored personnel carriers around and decided to retreat. This assault was a failure for the Russians. Here is another major assault by the Russian military in the Toretsk sector. Russian infantrymen are driving on two armored personnel carriers to a Ukrainian village. A Ukrainian reconnaissance drone spots them. One of the armored personnel carriers hits a mine. After the armored vehicle is blown up, the Russians make a forced landing and start scattering in different directions to hide from Ukrainian drones. But Ukrainian drone operators foresaw this and were already prepared for it. A second Russian armored personnel carrier was also attacked by Ukrainian kamikaze drones. The armor of the vehicle held out, and it continued the attack. But another Ukrainian kamikaze drone was hunting for him. Here, two other Russian MTLB vehicles are entering the territory of a Ukrainian village. One MTLB was disabled and the Russian infantry inside began to flee. However, they were targeted by bomber drones. Russians start looking for hiding places among Ukrainian abandoned houses. Another MTLB also landed troops who were attacked by a bomber drone. Another group of Russians began to hide between houses. Here's a Russian trying to hide from a Ukrainian drone by hiding behind a metal sheet from a fence. Russian military has nowhere to hide. Drone operators find them anywhere. The damaged Russian armored vehicles were successfully destroyed. The surviving Russian soldiers were constantly monitored by a reconnaissance drone. For the final clearance of the village from Russian occupiers, a Ukrainian tank was deployed. It began shelling houses where the Russians were likely hiding. And here's another damaged Russian armored personnel carrier. It was also destroyed by a tank shell. The repulsion of the Russian attack was successful. The occupiers' armored vehicles were destroyed. Here, a Ukrainian reconnaissance drone spotted a Russian BM-21 Grad multiple rocket launcher. The crew began to flee, but the Ukrainian drone caused a massive explosion. This is the Kupiansk direction. The Russians attempted an offensive with armored vehicles, and the Ukrainian military began to repel it. The first target was a Russian infantry fighting vehicle. 2 kamikaze drones were used to destroy it. The next attack took place on another infantry fighting vehicle. Then, Ukrainian drone operators began to destroy all other Russian armored personnel carriers. Here is a Russian T-80 tank, which also became a good target for Ukrainian drone pilots. Russian armored vehicles were successfully neutralized. Ukrainian reconnaissance drone spots 2 Russian T-80 tanks. Ukrainian drone pilots have already taken off to attack the enemy. After the drone hit, the tank was damaged but continued to move. To destroy it completely, another drone flew after it. After destroying the first tank, the drone pilots began to attack another tank. After 3 drone hits, another tank was also destroyed. Thank you friends, subscribe to the channel to be the first to know the latest news. This video was produced by Hustler. See you soon.